Hi, my name is Angela. I am currently a PGY2 ambulatory care resident, and today I'm going to be talking about interviews and a unique topic of how to ask difficult questions in interviews. I think we all have these different backgrounds, aspects of our lives that we bring into our professional lives. They're important and they're personal, and they're really hard to convey in a really short interview with someone you just met. So I want to share my advice of how that pertains to my own residency journey, how I navigated it, really based on advice that others gave me. So if that's something you're interested in, just keep on watching. There can be a lot of different things that are sensitive, difficult to describe, difficult to communicate, relating to your life and how it blends in with your professional work. Some people may need accommodations related to their health, related to their personal life, what they're going to be going through, what they have gone through, perhaps their religious beliefs, their faith, really anything can come up that conflicts with maybe a job requirement or a standard that you see other residents going through that you're just concerned that you'll not be able to fulfill in the exact same way or along with the expectations of your program. So I had such an accommodation that I really didn't have a lot of people, or I would say really anybody that was in a pharmacy career going into residency training into these kind of interviews and then later job interviews. I think that I had some great advice from others who had faced similar situations, more likely the job interview part. And I want to share some of the advice that I used, and I'll share my personal experience of what I felt like going through that in an interview. So I think some of the best advice I got was from a pharmacist who talked about how he had dealt with the conversations with potential managers and bosses. He recommended that honest communication results in compromise or a mutual professional providing of ways. So you may not always get your accommodation granted or accepted. Compromises will be that accommodation worked in, or a mutual parting of ways. This isn't the right fit, we can't accommodate you. If you have a confrontation, if it gets angry, or if you have a public announcement of your anger and frustration, that tends to just make things really, honestly bad for you really quickly. So avoiding that at all costs. And then managers, really, they're sympathetic to what you're going through. They do care, but they have a job to do at the end of the day, and they have requirements. So that's the priorities that's hanging in the back of their mind. A lot of times your accommodation or your specific needs will not be what the majority is going through. That's why it's unique. That's why it's not so easy to explain, because it's not something that everyone will understand. So just understanding that and recognizing it even with your voice in interviews can be a helpful thing. It's good for you to be calm and honest. And again, that just opens up for room for compromise if there is room. If you have that disposition going in, if they can make room, they're more likely to if you have a calm and honest attitude. And in the end, specifically with healthcare, it's all about patience. So if you can link your accommodation request, what you're going through, in a patient-centric manner and show how you're trying to prioritize the patient by what you're asking, any manager or leadership will see that as something that is, aligned with what they want. And it's not something that they will label as you're just trying to cause trouble, more work, drama. You're caring back about the patient, and that's what everyone's priority should be. So that was one pharmacist advice. Another was talking about how to find the right fit and the culture that meets the accommodation you're asking for. So she recommended that there be a discussion where you balanced your views and the needs of the employer being met. So that kind of matches what the other pharmacist said with, employers are sympathetic, but they have a job. So it's how you discuss that and discuss what the needs are. It's best to start yourself off on a good note and not immediately jump into your accommodation. Tell them what you can do. Tell them what you're going to be good at and what you bring to the table. Don't start off with what you're not going to do and what you're not willing to do with whatever situation you have. So showcase your strengths to start off of. Make that their first impression of you. Sometimes it's really hard for other people to understand what you're going through, so you really have to be intentional about what words you use when you describe your accommodation and let them know what the importance is for you. Otherwise, they may not understand it, and they may think that you're just asking on a whim, and it's not really a core part of what you need in your future career. Speaking with someone from a human resources department, other than the manager or in place of the manager, can always be very appropriate because they're more trained to have these types of conversations, maybe. So a couple of phrases that she recommended I use, talking about things that you're passionate about or things that you have going on outside of work or things that you need. You want to disclose it, that's a wording that's a little bit more specific to something you're bringing up to the table that needs to be addressed. What's important to you in a job, and the fact that this is off the beaten path, if you will, again, calling that out, are some things that you can use in your discussion. And then questions that you can ask of your potential future employer or potential residency program. You can ask them to describe what their program's like in whatever area you're asking accommodation for. Trying to ask if they would support an employee who had such an accommodation request. What would it look like if a person were to have this but continue working? What would an example of the accommodation and the workflow be? I'm just trying to give kind of generalized information here, but I thought her questions were really good. And how would you describe leadership about having these types of discussions? Because it could be that, you come to an agreement with your first interview and then later on something changes. So you need to have the discussion again about how things might change. So you might want to know how that process will go in the future. So those were, I think, two really good advice that I got from two different pharmacists, and I just wanted to share my own experience. So I did have an accommodation, or I had something that I really was not sure how to communicate. It gave me a lot of anxiety, honestly, before interviews and during interviews. There would be some times when I knew I had to discuss it and I couldn't focus on the task at hand as well as I wanted to. So it made it hard to focus, like I said. I did have times where I would write out exactly what I think I would say and practice it beforehand to give me into the flow. But I can't remember one time where I actually said what I had practiced and written beforehand. It always seemed to be on the fly in the moment after meeting that person. So I don't know if it helped or not. And I didn't say it the same way with each and every encounter or interview. I always, again, just tailored it to what I thought would be most appropriate and really just try my best in the moment. The best times I found are towards the end of the interview, similar to that advice given. You want to give the impression of your strengths, what you're going to do firsthand, and then at the end of the interview, it's more appropriate. Whenever I was one-on-one with my potential immediate future boss, that would be the time it was most appropriate to discuss them. I found myself kind of more self-conscious than I feel like I would normally be. Unsure of their impression of me because it is kind of not too common of a thing that they'll come across. But my overall advice and the takeaway of this video is that you should not underestimate yourself being able to talk about the things that are important to you. You'll find that your true passion for it and your true need to find the job that's right for you will come through in those really tough situations most of the time. And if they don't come through, then you'll catch yourself and pick yourself back up for the next time. And also don't underestimate other people. I have had different responses to my questions and my interviews every single time. No one matched what I thought that they would do or say. So I think that just showed me how much I have my own assumptions about people based on what I know about them. So I would encourage you to have an open mind. You'll never know what's going to happen. If you can find someone who's had any sort of similar experience, finding them to talk to vent, to ask, hey, did this happen to you? That would be the best thing. Talking to them early on would be even better so that you can go through this process ahead of time. But hopefully this video kind of talks about some things I would recommend. These are just steps that you can do as early on as you can to get yourself in the right spot. So I know this is a little bit different of a video, but I hope it helped you guys. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, and then share it with someone who you think it could be helpful for. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video.